Hi guys, and welcome to our overview of independent skilled migration. Hopefully it's of help. It's just an overview, it's not any advice, okay? So let's get started. So really, in an overview for independent skilled visas, we need to talk about three main things. The first one being occupations. So what occupation do you have? What tasks are performed in that occupation? The second one is a process of skill select. And this is fairly important to make sure that you can get nominated for a visa. And the third one is the assessment process. So please note all of these are required for an independent skilled visa. So what we'll do is we'll begin with occupations. So there are only specific occupations that can apply for an independent skilled visa. And these occupations are on the SOL list, SOL, which means Skilled Occupation List. And these are occupations in demand in Australia. The SOL list can be found. We'll provide a link below to give you a list of all those occupations that are in English. Now, the second thing you need to be aware of is the ANZSCO. And this is the standard classification of occupations within Australia and New Zealand. It provides definitions of the occupation and codes, so numbers which associate with your occupation, and also highlights the tasks and the kind of tasks performed by people in these occupations. So it also provides the education required to meet and satisfy the classification of these occupations. In the SOL list, these ANZSCO codes, the name of the occupation, and also a reference to the assessment body is in the SOL list, which is in that link below. Now, don't be discouraged if your occupation is not on the SOL list, because there are other independent skilled visas available to you. These are on what we call the CSOL list, which is the Consolidated Skilled Occupation List. The main difference between this list and the SOL list is that these occupations are in demand, but not in high demand. You will find that the occupations on this list are only in demand in certain regions. So whether that is within a particular state or within a particular regional area within Australia. Now, each of these regions have specific requirements that you have to apply to this regional area before they will actually give you the capability of applying for an independent skilled visa. So we would recommend that you check out our occupation video and anzscosearch.com.au, links below. So if your occupation is on the CSOL list, you can still apply for an independent visa, but you need to have a look at the regional areas and the assessment processes within first. So it adds another set of requirements on top of the independent skilled visa process. Now let's talk about Skillselect. Skillselect is an online process, and it's really a self-assessment process whereby skilled workers become candidates for visas. So if you can imagine a pool of candidates, those that have more skills and have more of the attributes that Australia wants are more likely to be selected from that pool of candidates. If you do get selected out of Skillselect, then you will get an invitation to apply for a visa. Now, remembering this is based on your occupation, and also there's points testing. And these points are really about your attributes will be of benefit to Australia. These points, you need 60 to be able to get into the Skillselect pool to be a candidate. And these points are based on things like your age, your work experience. Note, only after you've become qualified does the work experience count, your education, and also your English. You will definitely need to take an English test to do this process. You can gain more points doing other things, and we suggest that you check out the Skillselect website. We've left a link below. The more points you have, the more chance you have of being invited to apply for a visa. Note that you won't get the visa, but you're only invited to apply for one. How do we start this process? Well, first of all, you need an assessment in your occupation. And if you remember the SOL list, you'll see that the assessment body is highlighted in that list against your occupation. We need to compare your overseas qualifications to Australian qualifications. And that's what is the job of these assessment bodies. It is a lot easier if you're able to get your qualification in Australia. Overseas students that study in Australia may not need to go through this assessment process if they get their qualification in Australia. The majority of times it is necessary. Now, the assessment process is generally very detailed, and you will expect to answer questions in regards to your experience or your education. Now, the thing is that they will want to not only understand your certificates, but they want to understand the units in your course and detailed subjects. You will also need to provide translations of all of these courses. So it is a big job and requires a lot of work. Now, remembering in the assessments, you'll find that IELTS and English testing is also a requirement. We recommend that you deeply investigate the assessment process for your particular occupation before you begin. So let's have a look at the overview of what you need for an independent skilled visa and the requirements. Firstly, we need to have a look at the SOL list and see if your occupation is on that list, and make sure that your occupation has those tasks associated with it. The next thing you need to do is really have a look at the assessment process, the application that you need to do with that assessment process, and the requirements, which can all be found on the web. You'll find that there is also state and regional assessment processes where you can get extra points for applying for an independent visa in a state or region. And that creates another application, and there can be more requirements to that. And then lastly, you have to have a look at Skillselect. And that in itself is another application with more requirements, and that is also done on the web. So really it can be a very complicated process. What we do is we recommend that you start with Skillselect and see how many points you can get, and then work your way to the assessment application. So those are the two main things. Now, once you've actually gone into Skillselect, and if you get selected, you will get an invitation to apply for a visa, and then you can make your visa application. But the thing is, with all of this, it is really dependent on the invitation and when you receive that. So it's difficult to determine the timing on these visas. So that's why it's easier to progress with them offshore. Now, in summary, there are many factors that you need to be aware of. There's the assessment process, there's Skillselect. However, the main thing is they all do favour high English capability. So make sure before you even start this process, you get an English test score. For example, IELTS or TOEFL. So these visas give you access to work in Australia and a freedom to work with whomever you choose. Because there is an invitation process, it makes it very difficult to determine the timing of the visa and when you are actually going to get it. So it's best not to rely on this visa until you're able to get an invitation. I guess that's why we find that 66% of these visas are done offshore. So people can apply while they're still working in their home country and wait for an answer. I'd like to say thank you for watching our video. Please have a look at the links, and if you have any comments, we'd love to hear from you.